Hey, lovely thrivers. So today we're going to talk about what chronic inflammation is and 12 ways that you can reduce the inflammation. Now, while it is possible for you to do all 12 simultaneously, or at least really closely related, it makes more sense so as not to cause overwhelm to kind of do them in little by little, like maybe taking a few to do at a time so that you don't get overwhelmed. Hey, if you're new to my channel, my name's Wakia and I'm a health coach. I help those newly diagnosed with chronic illness take the overwhelm out of caring for your chronic illness so you can start to heal naturally. So let's get into it. So, what is chronic inflammation? Many of you have probably heard the term chronic inflammation, but weren't 100% sure what that really meant. So, in order for us to understand exactly what chronic inflammation is, it's better to define inflammation first to get that. Inflammation is a reaction, a natural defense reaction of the immune system to a real or perceived threat. Now, real could mean a cut or, being chased by a wild animal or getting ready to be hit by a car. Or a perceived threat is basically something that is not life or death, but can still cause a reaction, which is basically if you have a viral infection or a chronic illness or just a lot of stress. So the body can't detect or it doesn't know the difference between the two. So the same reaction will happen that of a real threat and a perceived threat. It'll be the same exact reaction. So once you have a real or perceived threat, there's a series of chemical reactions that occur that will basically call for help, for backup to neutralize the threat. This usually causes pain, swelling, and a number of other symptoms, which is inflammation. Now, if this continues to happen over and over and over again, what happens is the cells start to get depleted because of all of the nutrients that are being used in order to constantly fight the threat. And that leads to or becomes chronic inflammation. So as you can see, something that is natural, that is generally supposed to be very helpful, can become a bit more sinister if it continues to happen. So just to give you an idea of some of the symptoms of inflammation, and it generally a lot of times depends on which part of the body is having that inflammation, depends on how that symptom will occur or present itself, so to speak. So some of those symptoms are headaches, like those constant headaches. If you're constantly getting headaches, that's an inflammation. If you have poor memory, brain fog, joint pain, abdominal pain, bloating, and gassiness, constant gas, basically, especially within a half an hour or so of eating. If you have it once in a blue, then that's not necessarily a symptom of chronic illness. But if you're having them more constantly and it's left unchecked, it can develop into chronic illness. So if you want to know a little bit more or a more detail about what chronic illness is or how it affects the body and all of that, even more so, watch this video here and you can go ahead and get that information as to what chronic illness is. There's a whole video on that. But what I'll do is I'll just give you a few examples of what chronic inflammation can do in terms of developing into a chronic illness. So some of those chronic illnesses are Alzheimer's, which they are finding. Before they weren't really sure. Now it's definitely found out that inflammation is the cause of Alzheimer's, and it can definitely exacerbate if you don't do any of these 12 things. Diabetes, heart disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, multiple sclerosis, those are just a handful of the diseases, the chronic illnesses that can happen from chronic inflammation. And cancer is a big one. They have found that more than 70% of all cancers are caused by our diet and lifestyle. So how can you reduce a lot of reduce that inflammation so that you can start to heal? Well, number one is to reduce your processed foods. Now, when I say processed foods, that means your soda, cakes, chips. Don't get me wrong, everybody loves good soda, chips, and like everyone loves junk food, or at least that kind of sweet, satisfying, savory kind of food. Now, there's different foods that you can do to substitute that, or make a healthier version of the same thing. Number 2, reducing your sugar, the added sugar intake. Those are your sodas, your juices, and all of that. It's much easier to eat the whole fruit than it is to, what should I say, much healthier to eat the whole fruit than it is to drink the juice, because most of the nutrients are not in the juice, especially if you're already getting very heavily processed juice. When you're juicing, that's a totally different story. But if you're buying the processed juice from the stores, most of the nutrients are completely out of it, and you're getting pretty much just sweetened water. Number 3, reducing your stress. So most people are very highly stressed, especially during the times that we're in right now with COVID, even though we're still 2 years in, but there is still so much stress around it because people have had to keep shifting and keep changing their different aspects of their lives. So there's still a lot of stress involved, plus your regular day-to-day life, in addition to the stress of COVID. So stress is the number one indicator. If you have difficulty reducing the stress, then it is going to either create through the inflammation turn into chronic inflammation, turn into chronic illness, or it's going to exacerbate, which means going to make it much worse, the symptoms much worse because of the high stress levels. Because again, your body is working hard to bring out that threat. Number 4, quality sleep. When you have chronic inflammation, especially from chronic illness, what that does is that actually can start to break down the different cells in the organs of the body very slowly. When you get that sleep is rejuvenating, and there's a lot of repair processes that take place when you're sleeping. So sleep is very important. And I don't just mean sleeping, period, because you can sleep 12 hours and still wake up completely exhausted. So it's not just the quantity of sleep, but it's the quality of sleep. But the quantity of sleep is very individualized. It's not a one size fits all cookie cutter, you must get 8 hours sleep, because not everybody's body functions that way, but it is necessary to get quality sleep. Number 5, reducing your carb intake. A lot of our carbs are refined carbs, which go back to that processed foods. But it also is those breads, those cereals, and things like that have very simple carbs. You want the more complex carbs that's going to help to break down. And I'll go into each one of these points in separate videos just to really hone in on many more details and things of that. But basically, it's reducing the carbs is going to help to reduce that need for your body to go up and down with your metabolism, which can cause a lot of fluctuation, a lot of stress on the body, but also fat storage and just a whole lot of things that goes down. Number 6, exercise. Now, it's really important for exercise because exercise reduces inflammation, which is going to reduce that joint pain and the muscle pain as well. But there is a difference. You can't overdo exercise and you can't underdo exercise. I don't even know if underdo is a word, but anyway, I'm going to say it. So you have to have that balance. If you don't have that balance, then you create a situation where you increase the inflammation all over again. Number 7, movement. Now, exercise and movement are really two separate things, and I like to separate them because exercise usually is done to create or achieve a certain result, whereas movement is really what our bodies are designed to do naturally. So anything that you do, like even me talking right now, is some sort of movement, but it's not the movement that I'm talking about. So when you're moving, your body is designed to not sit for long periods of time or just stand for long periods of time in one spot doing nothing. Your body is designed to move. So like when you're doing chores and things like that, your body is moving to some degree. So your body is designed to do that as well. And moving around is going to prevent the muscles and the joints from atrophying and reducing. It's going to help reduce the inflammation. Number 8, vitamin D and sunshine. Vitamin D is really vital for bone health. It's important for immune health. It's just important all the way around. It's important for skin health. It's important for many things all the way around. But many of us don't get enough sunlight because we're usually stuck indoors, especially during this time that we're in now. But in general, a lot of us don't get outside because we're usually sitting a lot. So some ways to get that is through sunshine and your fatty fishes like your salmon. Number 9, fiber. The majority of Americans do not get enough fiber. 1, because of all the processed foods that we eat, and 2, because those breads and things like that, even if they're not ridiculously highly processed, we're choosing those simple sugars, those simple carbs, which don't give you your body the fiber that it needs, and not eating enough fruits and vegetables. Number 10, reducing your alcohol intake. Now, reducing the alcohol is going to reduce your inflammation a great deal, which is going to reduce your symptoms, obviously. Now, it's not saying that if you drink that you should never ever drink again in your entire life, but it does mean reducing the amount of alcohol you have. It could even be to once or twice a week as opposed to, a glass of wine a night, because again, the point is to reduce, in order to reduce the inflammation, you have to reduce the intake because alcohol is very inflammatory. Number 11, processed oils. Now, again, the processed oils, that goes back to the processed foods. So the processed oils are always in many of those processed foods. When I say processed oils, I mean soybean oil, cottonseed oil, sunflower oil, canola oil. So oils like that, they're very highly processed, and they kind of offset the balance between omega-3s and omega-6s, which while your body does need both omega-3s and omega-6s, the ratio sometimes, especially when you eat a lot of processed oils, which are in a lot of processed foods, you'll have an omega-6 ratio of here and an omega-3 ratio of here, and that can cause inflammation in the body. Number 12, most Americans do not drink enough water. Not having enough water causes a lot of inflammation because there's so much stuff in our body that needs to come out, that needs to be flushed out between the two main power organs, which is your kidney and your liver, your basically your major detoxifiers. And if you're not drinking enough water, that stuff can't get flushed out of your system. So increasing your water intake is going to help to reduce your chronic inflammation as well. And it's going to help to overall start to healing with the chronic illness. So if you found this video helpful, and don't forget to like and subscribe. You can comment down below and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any new content coming in. Until next time.